What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Week 1 MLS Power Ranking Show for 2022. Andrew Weeby and Matt Doyle guiding you through the very best of the best in Major League Soccer every single week. On Tuesdays, we do it live on Twitter Spaces. You can follow me at Andrew_Weeby or at Matt Doyle76 if you want to get it there. And we do it on YouTube as well. So you're watching on YouTube, you're watching the delayed version. You can always check us out live. And if you're not able to get in for the full show live, go check out the YouTube version. The top 10 this week: LA Galaxy at 10, Columbus Crew at 9, Portland Timbers at 8, Philly at 7, LAFC, Atlanta, New England, Seattle, Nashville, and NYCFC round us out. But the Galaxy are up a spot from the preseason to number 10 and into the top 10. Josh, are you there, man? Unmute yourself. Tell us what you thought of this performance. Tell us what you thought, of course, of Chicharito's pregame outfit.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm here. Yeah, the outfit was special. As I think Alexi nailed it right on the head with that. If you're going to wear that outfit, you better perform. And it seems like Chicharito did that. Even if for most of that game, I would say the Galaxy offense and maybe a little bit of the New York City offense was pretty quiet on both sides of that. So a really interesting game in terms of it got real exciting there at the end, but maybe hit a wall in the second half. Maybe a little bit of some quick whistles and refereeing really sort of killed a lot of that flow. Players complaining about the field as well maybe killed that flow in the second half as well. But a really interesting win for the LA Galaxy and something I think maybe you're going to see a little more to come of. It's hard to sort of make something of the first game, but there was a lot of emotion and enthusiasm after the game from the Galaxy.
Am I reading into that correctly in that you are not buying out that this is going to be a team of shutout merchants?
I mean, I've said it, so I'll say it to everybody. I don't think the Galaxy defense deserved that shutout. I think that New York City had three pretty good chances to score there, and they didn't capitalize on those. That being said, there was a tremendous amount of effort that was put in by the defense just collectively, not necessarily just the back four. And as Greg Vanney beats into us every single call we have, he says that the Galaxy defend well, that they're going to win games. This happened to be one of those where maybe they didn't defend perfectly, but they defended well enough. So they'll take the shutout. They'll hang that one up and stare at it often.
I'm going to keep on the defensive theme. One of the sort of underrated or unheralded additions throughout the league this year was Mark Delgado going from Toronto FC to this LA Galaxy side. He and Ryan Raveloson in central midfield, they cover a lot of ground. They have a lot of know-how. Both of them can pass a little bit. They can win the ball. That's something that we haven't seen a ton of from the Galaxy in central midfield in recent years, with the exception of Jonathan Dos Santos kind of having like a superhuman 2019. Like there hasn't been a lot of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can. I think if you're going to, I would hesitate to give them too much credit. I think they still have a lot of learning to do about how they sort of play together. I think Greg has talked a lot about that. Mark Delgado is an extremely tough worker, just goes everywhere, clogs lanes, is intelligent in the way that he moves in a lot of places. And his partnership with Raveloson there is something that needs to grow. They're playing more of a double pivot there, which is something that if it works well, you can really cover a lot of ground and you can be really solid defensively if you do it well. If you do it poorly, you can see at times where New York City was able to exploit space in behind Delgado and Raveloson when they both got caught moving forward. And then, that sort of leads to what I think is a pretty weak center back pairing right now with Koulibaly and Depew. So, saying that is that if they're playing well, then the spine of the LA Galaxy plays well. And I think that adds to sort of that defensive toughness. But there's going to be a lot on their shoulders to keep that up game in, game out for 90 minutes.
Go ahead.
As this one, is Koulibaly and Depew the number one center back pairing? I mean, I know it was in week one, but going forward, do you think that they have the leg up to be the guys in the middle of that back line?
No, I think Derek Williams is the number one there, and then I think there's a discussion about who's the number two. In my mind, it's Depew. So I think that Koulibaly may be the odd man out there. So just sort of keep an eye on that because Williams hasn't been healthy. Whether he was suspended last year or injuries, he didn't play a ton of the games, and so you did have Koulibaly and Depew playing a lot of that. And through all preseason, we haven't seen Derek Williams. He's expected to travel to Charlotte. But I'm still not sure if he's 100% game ready. So you may still see Koulibaly and Depew going forward here in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
Weeby's 100 Chicharito questions coming up.
Actually, it's
Go
Douglas
ahead.
Costa. Douglas Costa first. We know what we got from Cheech.
Right.
We don't know what we're going to get from Douglas Costa. I have literally no idea. Reading the tea leaves from Greg Vanney and those around him, from seeing him in this debut, what should we expect from Douglas Costa on this team?
If you're talking to Greg is extremely complimentary of everything that Douglas Costa does. Whether that's his change of speed, change of direction, his creativity. He says that the players around him have to get to know him better. Julian Araujo made a comment, I think, to Greg and said, I have to always be ready for the ball because he never looks at me when he actually passes me the ball. So there's little things like that you certainly can see. And I think you saw little spurts of that during the game. I'm not sold, obviously, after one game, and I don't think anybody is, on exactly what he can bring, because I think he has some great ideas, but I'm not sure the body can match that. And whether that's just not being 100% game fit yet, or whether that is a sign of, being older and haven't played at the top tier in the last couple of years, we don't know. So I think there's a ton of creativity, a ton of shot making ability, but what we're seeing and sort of how that goes and how he plays with the LA Galaxy, good overall start. Total question mark for me still after one game.
How many minutes does Chicharito play this year? We've talked about this a ton on ETR. Like, he'll score goals if he plays. How many minutes do you think he plays in 2022?
If the Galaxy are going to make the playoffs and be successful, I think he has to go over the 2,000 minutes. I really need to see him play somewhere around 28 games. I think the games may be more important than the minutes. Just in terms of what he's able to affect and sort of how he's able to put himself out there. So 25 to 28 games, he needs to be available for almost everything. He's in great shape. The injuries just seem to come back and bite him every once in a while. So that's what I need to see from him.
All right, Galaxy at 10. Last question here. They go to Charlotte on Saturday. Big Fox, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. David Goss will be on the ground, but not in a working capacity. So send him, buy him a beer, go shake his hand. If you see him, he'll have no excuse not to hang out. What do you want to see in that match from the LA Galaxy? And are you able to go? $75K, that could be a good one, Josh, for a road trip.
Yeah. I don't think I can get the hall pass for that one, so that's okay. I will allow it. Honestly, if the Galaxy want to be successful in this game, super big, huge trap game, ridiculously difficult to play against a team who really didn't show that well against DC, playing in what is going to be the largest MLS crowd in history. So you look at all those things and say that, they're right for sort of that trap game. If the Galaxy can score first, get out in front, put that crowd and make it quiet real fast, I think that's what you're hoping to see from this Galaxy team.
All right, go check out Court of the Galaxy. If you need a Galaxy-specific podcast, you guys do incredible work. Josh Geschman will be a guest on this show a ton this year. I appreciate you, Josh. Thanks for dropping by.
Thanks, guys. See ya.
All right, Jordan Angeli, you're up. Number 9, Columbus Crew. 4-0. Jordan, Merry Christmas. That's a good way to start the season.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. And there was plenty of Christmas puns happening throughout the game between Neil Sika and myself. It was a great start to the season. I think any coach would be happy with the domination that they saw at a home game like that. It was great.
Jordan, one of the things that both Caleb Porter and Tim Bezpachenko talked about this offseason was getting more danger and more productivity from the wings. And part of that was going out and getting Yaya Boa, who I thought was very good. Part of it was just getting more from guys like Derek Etienne. Obviously a good start to the season. Was there anything tactical that was different from how the wingers played in this one?
I think you're exactly right, Matt, in so many ways. And for the entire team, I think it wasn't just the wingers, but the wingers' production in 2021 wasn't good enough. And they would tell you that. And Caleb Porter said that. So to have the wingers on the score sheet, 3 of them on the score sheet, either with a goal or an assist in the first game of the season, think about the weight that takes off their shoulders when some of the wingers last year we were in October, in September, before they even got a goal with their name on it. So it takes a little bit of weight off them when it talk about production. But I think that the way that Vancouver sets up in the 3-1-4-2 that they decided to implement really played a lot to the strengths of Derek Etienne and Yaya Boa in this match, because they tucked in and they played in the pockets and they were that connection piece. I actually thought Derek Etienne cheated a little bit in a good way in those transition moments, and he sat in the pocket. If you go back and look at the heat map of this game, Derek Etienne was picking the ball up right there in the pocket so many times, and he spent most of his time inside trying to get the ball and then connecting either through Lucas Zelarayan out the other way or to the target forward in Miguel Berry.
Are we going Miguel Berry or are we just going Miguel?
Yeah,
guys, I'm not sure. Honestly, I didn't even realize it just said Miguel until after the game, and I saw the highlights.
I did a furious Google image search in the middle of this game to try to determine whether or not he had ever had Miguel on the back, solo Miguel, last year. It was Berry last year.
Yep.
Something happened in the offseason.
Yeah.
Caleb Porter seems to understand and know what that is. And Caleb Porter seems to prefer Miguel, at least in game one. How much did you read into sort of the quote? I think it was like, I'd be stupid not to play this kid more. He earned this by what he did last season, but I imagine he also would have had to earn it in preseason. How much of a positional battle is this right now?
I think it's a big battle, and it's exactly what you want when you're talking about a team who is needing to score more goals. You need two goal scorers who are competing every week in training, trying to one-up each other. And from what I've seen, the relationship between Giassi Zardes and Miguel Berry, it's been awesome. And they're constantly challenging each other in training. But you have to also think, Miguel Berry ended the season on a tear. He had 3 goals and an assist in the last 4 games of the year. He was with the team all of preseason. Actually said in the offseason, like, I didn't want the season to end because I was playing so well and I felt like I finally got my feet underneath me. And Giassi Zardes was gone for a big portion of preseason with the national team. So that's difficult, I think, sometimes to come in, especially when a front runner is scoring goals, performing, connecting the lines like Miguel Berry did. And him and Lucas Zelarayan have a special connection. And I think you see it evident in the goal that Miguel Berry scores is they look up, they see each other. Miguel raises his arm and is like, play me the ball. Those two have a good combination. And what better combo like that? Those are the 2 players you want to connect the most, your 9 and your 10 in the attacking third. And that's what those 2 are doing so well right now.
I don't know if you have listened to Extra Time. Maybe we sounded like idiots. We couldn't help ourselves. With Giassi on the bench, Miguel there, and it's a 6-year difference, and Giassi's got to get in that World Cup team, and he needs minutes. Like, is there any world in which the Crew that you could see would move Giassi Zardes? Or is this just like, this is going to be the 2 of them all year, and Giassi may just be in the lineup next week, and it might all go back to all Zardes?
So I got a text from Goss this morning about that, and I was like, wait, what? Am I living under a rock? I haven't listened to yesterday's. I didn't listen to yesterday's podcast yet. So
we had fun with that moment.
It sounds like you guys did have a good time. I don't think that is going to happen personally. I think that where these 2 are at, Giassi Zardes is, we know who he is. He can score goals for this team. He has proven that he does things on both sides of the ball that are really effective in Caleb Porter's system. And Miguel Berry is still young, and it's great. He's doing a great job right now, gets a goal, is effective in the first game. But I do think that this is a season where the Crew learned from last year. And if you don't have depth in key areas on your team, then it's going to cost you. And I think the depth at forward, that's exactly what you want. 2 really quality players who score goals, who are fighting for that position week in and week out.
All right, well, we'll take a back seat for now, but it was fun. Crew up 7 spots to 9. Go follow Jordan on Twitter, Jordan Angeli. Like, if you combine it, like the A in at the end of Jordan, and then put the last name in, I mean, you can figure it out. She's right here. Go check it out. Follow her. Listen to her on those Crew broadcasts, and I'm super sad to not be able to listen to you and Joe for the time being, but I know that I will still get all of your tactical insights across the board this year.
Yeah.
So
thank you guys for
Joe
having me.
In the comments as well. Jordan, we'll talk to you more, of course. I think this team is going to be in the top 10, but we're on to number 8 now. Tom Bogert, are you there to talk Portland Timbers?
Let's go, yeah. What's going on, guys?
Are you in the air? Like,
he's at a New Jersey rest stop. What's going on there, Tom?
I'm on the boardwalk. Come on, guys. What's going on?
The boardwalk? Is this a day off? Come on,
walking the dog.
Chop.
Let me take a break. What do you want me to do? Do content? I'm doing content right now. I'm working.
Look at that. That's just the life of luxury. Just steps out the front door, right onto the boardwalk. Jersey Shore lifestyle. Portland Timbers 2-2. What did you like? What did you maybe have questions about from this performance by the Timbers?
Before I go into that, I'm going to make a joke real quick that, why are we all laughing about Chicharito's outfit? Like, that looks like something I might find in my closet. Like, there something weird
I
about
should
that?
have thought
why,
that. I should have
why,
thought.
Oh,
Big
boy.
time
why
Tom
is there
Bogert
why is there so
vibes.
many questions? Yeah, no. What I liked about the Portland 2-2 draw is that Santi Moreno looks really good. Like, I was surprised at how quickly he kind of found his feet in MLS at the end of last season and in the playoffs. But he was a difference maker. And, with those U22 initiative guys, you never know how quickly that'll happen, if it'll ever happen at all, for like Rodrigo Pinheiro in Nashville, for Thomas Chacon in Minnesota, who was a DP first and U22 initiative. So I think that that's a really positive sign. The fact that Sebastian Blanco didn't get off the bench until there was, 10 minutes left. Definitely surprising. Maybe a little bit of a worry there that maybe his legs aren't there yet. But the fact that Santi Moreno was so good and so, I guess, electric and so like pretty quickly able to kind of do a lot of the things that Blanco did at like a lesser level is like really great news for that team.
Does it reframe the way you think about this Timbers? Well, I'll say for me it did, right? I thought that Timbers, their floor is pretty low. A tractor just drove by. I think their floor going into the season, I thought their floor was pretty low because of the Blanco thing. Because if you're not going to get 2,000 good minutes out of him, you just don't know what they're going to be able to bring in attack. With Moreno being able to be a bit of more than a bit of a serious playmaker coming in from the wing, it's like that floor just got a little higher, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's fair, but I guess that I wasn't really worried about the attack, regardless of what you get from Blanco. I assume that, again, like there was obviously questions over his health and to why that the deal wasn't signed immediately and why they had to restructure the deal. So that was obviously a question mark. But look at Yimi Chara, Yaroslav Niazgoda, Felipe Mora, Santi Moreno, who, again, I was high on. Like, it'd be unfair to expect him, again, to be what Blanco is. But I figured that there was just kind of enough there in terms of attacking output. Like, my questions are around the seam, on the defense. And obviously, New England was one of the best attacking teams in the league last year. I don't know if they had the most goals or not, but they certainly are in that top elite tier of attacking talent. So giving up 2 goals to them isn't necessarily the end of the world, but I don't have, I'm not worried about the defense still. So again, like a long-winded way of saying the attack wasn't really where my questions are or where they were.
Yeah. Have you ever scored a bike, Tom? I'm just curious. I mean, we hear about your men's league exploits. I don't know if you're like a bike guy or more of a Ozzy Alonso live on the edge of red card guy.
More of a men's league Sasha Kleshin guy. A lot of no-look passes, a lot of 1 foot, a lot of dominant foot stuff, a lot of assists, and not necessarily the goal. Definitely not the acrobatic guy.
Can we just celebrate as we watch it? And those of you who are watching this on YouTube, if you're on Twitter Spaces, just imagine it in your mind. Jimmy Chara turning, finding the ball in the air, flipping the bike, going bottom corner. This probably isn't going to be goal of the year, but it's going to be in the running. This is special, man. This is such a great goal to have on opening day.
That one, it was just like a classic no, yes shot. Usually you get that in basketball. As a Knicks fan, J.R. Smith was the king of that. But like when he was lining that up for a bike, it's like you got 8 yards of space everywhere around you. Just chest it down. And oh my God, what a goal. Great decision.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. That is absolutely what it felt like. I'm going to make the point as well that this team suddenly has a lot of depth in central midfield, right? Like Diego Chara is still Diego Chara. Christian Paredes is in there. Eric Williamson is getting back. They brought in David Ayala, who looks like he's going to be Chara's heir. They checked a lot of boxes this offseason, Tom, and they just look more solid in that part of the pitch.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to see Ayala play. Like, again, just he's the kind of profile that, I think will lend well to the league. He's something that the team needed, another kind of destroying type. In at some point, Diego Chara can't play 3,000 minutes or whatever, right? Like, or it's like another nice option to have. Like, people I talked to at the club were explaining it to the effect of, like, yeah, like that's probably his best role, but he's also somebody who could play, not like Eric Williamson, but he won't be too redundant if you ask him to do another role next to Diego Chara. So just their overarching point was he could play next to Chara, he can play next to Williamson, like he can fill a couple different roles, which is super useful.
All right, big draw, I guess, but a big test coming up for Portland. That was home cooking. They go to LAFC. We know what Carlos Vela is doing. We'll talk about Vela coming up here with Alicia Rodriguez. But for this week, down a spot to 8 are the Portland Timbers. FS1 on Sunday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. LAFC is going to host that one. All right, let's keep it moving here. On to our 7th team in these rankings. That is the Philadelphia Union. Doop, 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 doop. That wasn't my doopiest dupe, but after a win, Marissa, maybe I'll get there.
That was
Welcome
such
to
a
the show.
lackluster dupe, I have to say.
I felt it
Come
as I
on, they
said
got
it.
a point. They got a point.
It was
at least.
I was disappointed in myself as well. Do you think that the Union were disappointed as well? Because a point at home with the ambitions that they have on opening day, probably not what they really wanted out of this game.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know how vocal they'll be about the disappointment, because there's always that storyline of, well, it's the first game of the season, but still, I think expectations are still so high for this team. And I talked to Jim Curtin before the game, and he said, "Listen, we don't have Champions League to distract us at the beginning of this season. We need to come out firing." That was so many of our keys to the game, was come out to a hot start, and they did quite the opposite. And kudos to them for being able to come back from conceding the first goal, because we all know that's not super easy to do, especially at home when you kind of let the air out of the balloon a little bit. But yeah, it was not the showing anyone expected, I think, from the team. Not to say that Minnesota isn't a good team. They very much are. But I think we expected more out of Philly.
Yeah, there was just a lack of sharpness in the final third. And that's not unexpected this part of the season. I will say that Philly were very good on set pieces and could have had another one. That they got their only goal off a set piece. But like a lot of that weight is going to come down on Daniel Gazdag. He's a DP creative midfielder with Jamiro Montero gone. It is kind of his job to lose, but at the same time, he hasn't been super impressive now in his half season, a little more than half season with the Union. What are the thoughts in the fan base? What are the thoughts in local media? What are the thoughts within the team on Daniel Gazdag? Because he's supposed to be the one who can unlock these games and elevate the team to another level.
Right. And I think that the point that you make is so important. Of Montero did it all. Anything you asked of him, he did. And Gazdag came in, into the season and was a little lackluster last year. I mean, nothing stand out. I think people are still pretty hopeful of him. I don't think anyone's pushing the panic button just yet, but because I think there's that sentiment around the team of, well, we have these young kids who have stepped up time and time again. So if for some reason Gazdag doesn't play out, which I think he will, I think he just needs to get used to playing that role consistently. Whereas last year he was a fill-in. He was, a Band-Aid in a certain case, where this is his role and his alone. I think if he takes ownership of it a little more, plus he's playing with a bunch of different sets of forwards in front of him. He has two completely new guys, one who's completely new to the league in general, to start to get that rhythm and understand how they want to be, set up and what's the best way. And so I think there's some growing pains, but I think the belief is still overall there.
Mike was off. Sorry, I muted myself. Doyle bringing up poor Gazdag when we could talk about Carranza. But I actually want to talk about Mikkel Ura. It seems he's there. I mean, I saw Tannenwald tweeting out that he's on the training field. Like, I don't think it was a saga or anything, but is Ura in the building?
I believe so, yes. From what we knew, obviously he was there on Saturday. They did a very European entrance of him. They announced him on the PA, and he held up a scarf, and the crowd went wild. And it was a nice moment. So he was in the stadium. From my understanding, he got into Philadelphia late last week. So there was just no way I think Curtin felt comfortable being like, all right, get off the plane and play your first ever game in this league. So I'm hoping a week is enough to see him in Montreal. I would think someone who was already in season like he was would be more so ready to kind of hit the ground running in just a week's time. So he's in the vicinity. We know that. So we just have to see him on the field, maybe coming off the bench.
What's reasonable expectations? This is a Golden Boot winner from Denmark coming into a new league, a new team, into a role that we've talked about for a long time that needs to be short up maybe, but just like a better player will take them to a different level. What are reasonable expectations?
I think, I don't know. I feel like numerical expectations are tough to pull out, but I think as long as we can get a consistent goal scorer, because if we can get a goal from him, just regularly, always count on him just to put the ball in the back of the net, because we saw Kacper Shabilko at a certain point was that brilliant goal scorer, and then he very much lost it. Yeah. And either it was confidence, or it was probably a lot to do with confidence or getting into that funk. He just needed a fresh start, but it was hard to watch him not even make good runs sometimes, or be in the wrong spaces, or then just, think too much in finishing. So if we could just have, I think we're calling him I think that's how we're saying it. That's what JP Dellacamera told me to say. So I go by him. He's Bible to me. So I think if could just be that consistent person up top, and then maybe let like a Sergio Santos or a Corey Burke kind of add the flair or that spectacular goal every once in a while. I think we just need consistency up top.
Mikel Orr is what we're going with off JP. Now,
Listen, it was JP, yeah.
Anders' mom talked to her friends in Denmark, our producer on Extra Time, and that's how we got Ura. But now we have to just restart it all. We better hit up.
They're going to have to duke it out with that. Mom's going to have to duke it out with JP, because I just go by what he says.
Okay.
And, I've been hitching my wagon to him, and it's been doing well. So
sounds like I need a recording from Mikel to tell us exactly how to say this. But the Philadelphia Union 7, Marissa Pilla, a guest here for the first Power Ranking show, the first of many this year. Thank you, Marissa, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right, let's keep it moving. On to 6 we go. None other than LAFC, up only 3 spots after shellacking the Rapids. Carlos Vela running amok. Alicia Rodriguez is here. You know her very, very well from this show, from coverage across the league, and specifically at SB Nation these days. All over the place, especially covering the LA teams and California. What's up, Alicia? Good to talk.
Hey, guys. Welcome back to the new season. Can you believe it's already here?
Oh, I can believe it. I can believe it because I see Carlos Vela doing Carlos Vela things. What have you made of the last week of Vela? Not just the goals, but the contract stuff. I mean, it's been a little bit of a circus.
Yeah, it's been really interesting because there had been credible reports that Vela was running out in June over the winter, but there really hadn't been much talk about it. And then LAFC had Vela media availability last week, and of course, one of the first things that he's going to be asked is about his contract situation. And I think we know Vela is somebody who's pretty open and pretty honest, and kind of what he wants. And he said straight up, "I'm waiting for an offer." He didn't specify if he's waiting for an offer at all or the offer he wants. And then went out and basically dropped the mic on the field on Saturday. So I think that that's a pretty good indication of his sense that he wants to continue and get paid. What
do you make of Twellman's report that a contract is going to be? He expects a contract to be announced between 18 and 24 months. Is your expectation that the end of this whole song and dance just ends with Carlos staying in LA?
Yeah, I think so. I think it would be pretty weird for him to continue on this season without having a deal in place. Since he's in the final 6 months of his contract. The team, has retained him as the captain. Not that necessarily he can't be captain for a few months and then jet, but I think that would be kind of a weird situation, certainly unprecedented in our league. And yeah, he did say that he likes LA. I genuinely think he does like LA. I think he likes playing in MLS. And maybe, after a disappointing season last year, maybe he feels like he has something to prove again. And, he wants to come back for another full season to sort of see what he can do. I'm not somebody who thinks he's bound for Europe necessarily. I think it's a possibility, pretty much a possibility with him. But I definitely think that, chances are pretty likely he will stay and they're going to extend his deal. But yeah, it's a weird situation for sure.
3-0, and we know the hangover for the Rapids. We got you breaking up just a tad, Alicia, so we're going to get one more question here and get out. What were you most impressed by from this performance outside Carlos Vela? Like, what do you think that Steve Cherundolo's hanging his hat on in video sessions?
Well, I think the team looked pretty cohesive, and the defense looked like they had their minds, pretty well established. I thought Jesus David Murillo had a really good performance, which is good for his season to come, hopefully. And then I think midfield, 2/3 of it was new, but I think they played pretty well. And I think the team, by and large, looked like the kind of LAFC that we've gotten used to. So if that defense can hold firm, if Maxime Crepeau can be as good as he's been in Vancouver, then that should bode well for LAFC, the rest of the season.
And we end on Carlos Vela curling the ball in with his left foot. You're going to see that a ton this year. If he is healthy, and you're going to see Alicia on Power Ranking show a ton, as well as all of our coverage coming out on the teams in LA. Alicia, appreciate you. At Soccer Musings on Twitter. Follow her, folks.
Thank you.
All right, on to number 5 we go. J. Sam Jones, make your way in because the Five Stripes don't stop.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Tom Bogert live from a New Jersey boardwalk.
I can hear the mustache when he speaks, like the little bit of air that filters through it, and I know that that's not you, Tom. It's you, Jason. You don't have a mustache, man. It's okay. You don't have to fake it to make it.
I feel like that was kind of a flex from Tom. It's like, okay, not only am I on the boardwalk, like I'm going to do your piddly little show while I'm walking my dog. There's a guy in a tractor driving.
That was a power move, wasn't it?
It really was, man. Like, we're going to have a talk with him.
We are. Power move by Atlanta, though, in Game 1. Power move by Dom Dwyer and, I guess, Araujo until he had to take off. Emotionally, Sam, how did you experience this one? How do you think the fan base experienced it?
This was cathartic in a way. It kind of felt like it. I think I came on here and complained a lot last year. I don't really have any complaints after that one. And it's an old feeling, but it feels like a new one. It had been a long time since Atlanta looked so assured in everything they did, right? Even in transition moments where they hesitated so often last year. They knew where to go with the ball, who they were getting it to, and the attacking patterns to make it effective. That's something we haven't seen really since Tata. Maybe when Joseph Martinez was coaching the team in the latter half of 2019, they did it a little bit, but it was never quite as effective. It felt good. 67,000 people saw it too. It was something kind of special, I think.
Are you worried about Araujo?
Yes. I'm not going to play doctor, but we've had, of course, Atlanta United Twitter has been playing doctor all day, and general consensus is it doesn't look super good. He's been posting pictures of his hamstring on Instagram, of his quad, I guess, on Instagram. Looks pretty bruised. He seemed to be extremely upset when he was coming off the field. Gonzalo Pineda didn't seem confident in the post-game press conference. And just like that, Atlanta United loses what's maybe their best player right now for probably an extended period of time, if I had to guess.
Yeah, it doesn't look great. Gonzalo Pineda was not super optimistic afterwards when talking about it. We will get, I'm sure, more information in the coming weeks.
You know what? I saw those pictures of the hamstring floating around Atlanta United Twitter, and I thought that was like a fan who was like, hey, I hurt myself last night. What do you guys think this is? I didn't realize that the Instagram reporting from the man himself was this strong. Like, this is wonderful stuff. And by the way, on YouTube, we're watching Dom Dwyer's goal, which might have been last on the list of things that I would have predicted for week 1.
The novel coronavirus didn't exist the last time Dom Dwyer scored a goal in MLS. It was extremely surprising, to say the least, but physically he looked good. He understood his role. I think he came on in a pretty tough situation, and Sporting Kansas City, I think, kind of maybe made a mistake, kind of inching up a little bit once they realized that Uju wasn't going to be killing them on the wing anymore, and gave Dom Dwyer a ton of space, and it eventually hurt him in a way I don't think maybe even Dom really imagined it would. It was extremely impressive and encouraging for Atlanta, who maybe has never had a true backup striker. I know Tito Jalba played there a little bit when Joseph got hurt in year 1, but never really a backup striker that's been totally effective. If Dom can be that, then that helps out a lot.
So with Araujo out for a while, is Dom a backup striker, or is he now a starter? Like, what happens to this lineup with Araujo?
That's a great question. We're, of course, expecting Thiago Almada to be here eventually. Gonzalo Pineda seems really high on Tyler Wolff, who also played on the wing in this one. He came out and said directly in the press conference after the game that he doesn't like to play with 2 strikers. Obviously was forced into it a little bit, but it's never going to be a straight 2-striker setup if Dom is out there. I don't quite know what the direction they go is with this, but he kind of proved that he can get the job done. It kind of makes sense maybe to just run him back out there and see if he can do the same thing.
There's Mulroney as well. Mashap Chol, I believe, is on the depth chart. So there are options, but it's not. There's no plug and play for Araujo. There was a plug and play for central midfield. I want to get your thoughts on what happened there with Ozzy Alonso and Amar Sejic, and like the starting central midfield with guys like Santiago Sosa was out, no Thiago Almada. Obviously, he's expected to be the number 10, and even Ibarra coming back. It seems like Pineda's got kind of a wealth of options at his disposal.
Yeah, and that was kind of truly surprising, all considered. It was a team last year that was just kind of soft in midfield, and there was a lot of wondering if they were going to be able to change that when they switched to a back four out of the extra midfielder, and they really proved that was the case. Marseille was covering a ton of ground. Ozzy Alonso is an instant fan favorite in Atlanta and fills kind of a Jeff Larentowicz-sized void in all of our hearts, I think. But with more mobility and better ability on the ball, that was a stellar performance in his first game. Of course, the question, I guess, is if he can keep it up over the course of a 34-game season. But Atlanta fans really, really liked what they saw from him. Sejdic did a heck of a job. These are two guys who are on minimum salary contracts, right? And doing all the work that Atlanta United didn't have last year from some more higher paid guys. Even Mateus Isetu was, we'll call him effective, I think is fair, was doing a decent job. Maybe not winning the ball as much as Sejdic and Alonso, but he wasn't being asked to do that.
I can't decide what I enjoy more, watching Ozzy on no yellow cards or watching Ozzy on a yellow card. We'll see how that plays out over the course of the rest of the year. We just on YouTube watched Caleb Wiley's goal, 17 years old. Everybody saw the picture, I'm sure, of Caleb Wiley embraces at like 12 with Joseph Martinez. And now he's on the field doing this to ice a game against a very good team in Sporting Kansas City. This is an Atlanta native. It's a homegrown kid. These are the moments that I love, and I just want for everybody out there that doesn't know who Caleb Wiley is, Sam, like help them understand what this story is.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're exactly right. Atlanta native, 17 years old. His dad owns a pizza shop here in Atlanta, and so is known for just being a business owner. I think the pizza shop is called Oz Pizza here in Atlanta. So well connected in the community, and everyone's kind of been keeping an eye on Caleb because of that. Now he gets on the field. He looks extremely ready. He looked extremely ready in his first preseason game, just from a physical standpoint at 17 years old, which is always really, really impressive, and looks ready in a way that George Bello maybe never did. And I think folks are kind of starting to wonder whether the ceiling for Wiley is maybe a lot higher than where it ended up potentially being for George. It's a really, really exciting thing to see in Atlanta, and I imagine he's going to get plenty of playing time going forward, as Gonzalo Pineda seemed really comfortable trotting out at 1.4 different fullbacks at one time in this one, all effective in their own different way.
It's always fun to get inside the brains of like Atlanta fans, Seattle fans when things are going well. It's just like, it's like a ship with the wind at its back, baby. The sun is shining. Nothing can stop us now. Atlanta at 5. J. Sam Jones, he writes the power rankings. Go check him out at MLSsoccer.com. That's, of course, what we're talking about. Sam, appreciate you, man.
Oh, I thought that was Tom Bogert the whole time.
No, the wind wasn't whistling through his mustache, so I knew from the very, very start. All right, let's talk number 4. New England Revolution down a spot after a draw on the road across the country, which that seems a little bit harsh to me, Doyle, especially with Seattle still ahead of them after drawing at home. This seems about where they'll be like most of the season, somewhere in the top 5, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the consensus is still there, and the consensus is still probably right. You go on the road, you score a couple goals, it's a good sign. They got 15 minutes from Josie Altidore at the end, which is a good sign. They got, I thought, a pretty decent game from Omar Gonzalez, which another good sign for the depth of their defense, which wasn't necessarily a strong suit last year. The goal from Sebastian Lletget, they checked a lot of boxes in this one. Maybe there's still the one that's unchecked for me, which is that they have trouble getting pressure to the ball in central midfield. Like, you can flood zone 14 against them, as if you're watching this on YouTube, you're about to see exactly that, and make, kind of rip the Revs apart and make them chase and force their goalkeepers into being heroic. Now, over the past few years, Matt Turner's been up to the job. Earl Edwards was up to the job in this game for the most part. but like you can't rely on that against good teams. And like we've seen this again and again for the Revs in the playoffs, and it feels like Bruce Arena needs to adjust. To me, it feels like Bruce needs to have that moment where he's like, we just got to get more numbers in deep central midfield, and if they don't,
walk me through that adjustment in your mind. Like, help people understand what would change.
So the way the Revs play, they line up in a 4-4-2 diamond, but it's a wide diamond, right? It's with the two outside midfielders in the diamond, the guys who usually would think of as shuttlers. Like, they're really just wide midfield attackers, almost like you would see in a classic 4-4-2. It has its benefits. Obviously, they had 73 points last year. They overwhelmed teams going forward. They are good enough in this formation to get results against most teams. But against the high-end teams, it doesn't work as well. And this is something that we have seen Bruce kind of make this mistake over and over again throughout the years. Like, this was like going 1v3 in central midfield. That happened for the U.S. national team in Cuba 4 years ago. Like, that was the genesis of how the U.S. lost that game. Same thing happened against Ghana in the 2006 World Cup. So it could be sort of flattening the 4-4-2 diamond into maybe more of a 4-2-2-2. Get Leggett to play next to Matt Polster and put Carlos Heel as sort of an inverted right midfield playmaker, which is it's a position he's played before. It's a position that Nico Lodeiro played when he first came into MLS as well. And like, obviously, Seattle won an MLS Cup with Lodeiro playing that position. That's one. The thing that feels more obvious to me is just going to a 3-5-2. Like you could have Polster and Leggett deep, Heel in front of them as a true number 10. It gets both of Gustavo Bo and Adam Buxa on the field at the same time, and it would allow those fullbacks of theirs, Brendan Bye and DeJuan Jones, both of whom are very good going forward. It allows them to play as wingbacks. So it allows them to get forward a little bit more naturally and provide width while retaining three center backs. And that's where the addition of Omar Gonzalez and maybe the development of Jonathan Bell can come into play. I just think every time I look at this roster, and honestly, most times I look at them play these days, it feels like a team that's just waiting for that shift into a 3-5-2.
We will see what Bruce Arena will do over the course of the coming months here as they chase CONCACAF Champions League. I think Pumas up next for them here in about a week or so. And MLS Cup. I wrote before the season started, Supporter Shield, I don't think that really matters to them at all. Like, not even Bruce wouldn't even touch the thing last year. Like, that was in a historic season. I don't think he's bothered by that. So it's about those two fronts. The first one will come with Turner and with Buxa, and the second may come without both of them. But regardless of those tactical question marks that we have, this is going to be a team in the top 5 all year, in my opinion. Talent-wise, just Carles Heel alone, like, I'm telling you, people, just watch the man. Just when you watch the Revs, just watch him for about 10 or 15 minutes. You will be astounded at what he does and the things that he makes look extremely easy. All right, let's keep it rolling. On to number 3 we go, Seattle Sounders. Losers at the death to Nashville, who are new boys in the Western Conference. Steve Zakuani, hit the unmute button, my guy. What's up? How you doing?
I'm good. How are you, man?
It's good. I told you in the text to book you that I'm a little disappointed we're not getting you off the endorphin high in the morning that is kickboxing, but I still trust that these are going to be fun hits most weeks.
I hope so.
What'd you make of what really seemed to be a pretty lackluster performance against Nashville after what was a really exciting one against Motagua?
Yeah, it was. I think, first of all, you have to give credit to Nashville. We haven't seen too much of them here. We've never seen them in Seattle before or in the West in general, but it's such an organized team. And I think the Sounders had to realize that the space was going to be wide against that team, and it never materialized. We started with Jordan Morris on the left. He ended up going up top. We had, Big Sam Adeniran start up top. He went on the left. They tried to find different solutions. It just never quite worked out, and they never exploited the spaces in the wide area. I would still say everyone here in Seattle feet on the ground, because we know probably by week 7, week 8, week 9, week 10 is when maybe that quartet of Rui Diaz, Ladero, Jordan Morris and Albert Rusnak is going to look something like what we think it might look like. So not too much panic, credit to Nashville, but for the Sounders, of course, disappointed that they didn't really work the goalkeeper in a way you expect for a team coming into Lumen Field.
Let me ask you about Jordan Morris, because he was pretty effective in this one. How much do we think that's just he's still not 100% sharp coming back from the ACL injury? How much of it was tactical? Because he kind of got lost coming inside, I felt, where he wasn't able to kind of break apart the diamond that Nashville was playing out of.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So I actually think he's a lot closer to 100% than we'd think, because he came back end of last season. He's been in with the national team. He's had a really good offseason, a good preseason. I think it's tactical, because anyone who watched the second leg of the CCL would have seen him playing very narrow inside. And on that evening, it worked a bit more because Motagua is not anywhere near as organized as Nashville. And, I spoke with Brian Schmetz and said, are you guys telling him to play a bit more narrow till he space for Nuhu? And it really isn't a coaching thing. This is Jordan Morris taking upon himself, trying to read the game, which I appreciate. As a former wide player, at times you have to see the situation and make your own choices on the field. But I want to see him out wide, because he never got isolated even one time against the Nashville backline. And, at his very best, Jordan Morris must be receiving the ball facing towards the opponent's goal. I think almost every touch in this game was back to goal, which he's a decent hold-up player, but that's not where I want to see him. So I think he's playing a bit too narrow. I want to see Jordan get back to... He's looking again like a striker being asked to play out wide rather than just a pure wide player, which I think he got to before the ACL.
Where's Nico at in your mind, like physically? I mean, he didn't start this match, but came out at halftime. We saw him start in CCL. How ready is he to be like a game in, game out?
In CCL, he was outstanding. I thought on Thursday night, we finally saw the Nico we've missed for about 8-9 months, because he came back at times last season. He didn't look the same. This is a player who, I know he starts as a number 10. He's not a 10. He's just on the pitch. He's going to go find the ball. He'll show up on the right. He'll show up on the left. He moves around. And he's at his very best when he's almost every fourth or fifth pass that the Sounders are making. And he looks good in the CCL. It made sense to rest him in the first half of this game and then bring him on. He didn't find the game when he came on. That's the truth. But in terms of his movements, in terms of how he feels, his pain tolerance, he's much, much closer to the Nico Ladero that we saw in the early years here when he first came and completely transformed an already successful franchise into even more success. And I think we didn't see that last season, but he's going to be the key. I think if Nico can be anywhere near Nico Ladero, there's just very few players like him in the history of this league. He makes his team that much better.
Half his age. Obed Vargas, let's get the hype train going, Steve. It's crazy. Like I said, half his age, because in the moment I'm like, wait, he very well. I think he is half his age.
Yeah,
That's insane.
Yeah. No, he's good. He's good. We had Danny Leva a couple years ago. It was about him. Then last year, Josh Atencio broke through. And listen, I thought in the CCL game, it was a bit reserved in both legs, because as a young player, you come in, first thing is, no, I don't want to make mistakes. But I think if you want to be a young player that really is going to make a mark, you have to show something different. You can't just be someone there who we say at least he's not a liability. You have to give us something as well. And I think at times against Nashville, he was at least a highlight, a bright spark. You saw him on the ball. He's trying to dribble and go at guys. He's very clean in possession, very, very clean. And I also thought his ball recovery and interceptions and positioning, how he cut the passing lanes. I mean, to be at that age against that kind of team, Nashville, in this kind of game, he did not look out of place. And I think the biggest compliment I can play him is that Brian Schmetzer felt comfortable enough moving Christian Roldan out wide and leaving him in the middle and telling him, you're going to sit and pick up a lot of the loose balls and get our game going. And he looked like he belonged. So he's definitely someone that's got people over here excited.
All right, let's talk CCL and then we'll let you go, Steve. You got Club Leon up next. This is a competition that has frustrated and disappointed at times this club. Why can this time around be different?
It's a focus. I think it's a focus of this group. I think the last time this group was in this competition, it went out at a stage it should not have gone out. And I also think when you look at the field, I remember when I played and we'd go to play Santos Laguna at home and we knew maybe we can win one here, we might win 2-1 or 1-0. But every time going down there, you expect to lose 3 or 4-0. I don't think that's the case now. I think that gap has closed. I think the Mexican teams, for whatever reason, this season don't look as good as they've looked in the past. It's a real opening. So if you're a team like the Sounders and you want to get that in your trophy cabinet, what a season. What a chance. What an opportunity to go for it. But we saw Leon last year in the other competition, and that's a good team. This is going to be a great matchup, because I think you have to play the best teams at some point to go through. That's what the Sounders are going to face, but it's wide open, man. And it's one that this club hasn't yet got. And knowing, from the ownership down to the coaching staff and the guys in that locker room, it's definitely a focus. Guys want to win it. And I think just like this team sort of set the tone in the early years, going after the Open Cup and taking it seriously, I think the focus this year has shifted. Of course, in MLS, you want to do well. But if you can get a good Champions League run going, I think it will do wonders for the club.
Great year to do it for the Sounders. On their side of the bracket, Club Leon is the only Mexican team remaining. If they can beat Leon, it will be the Comunicaciones, who, of course, knocked off the Rapids, or NYCFC. That's the path to the final. This is my first of the year. I lied. I have one more question. How many trophies is acceptable for this team?
That's a tough one. Acceptable, you take at least one. I think if you're the Sounders, you want to keep winning a trophy a year. Now, which trophy that is will determine the level of happiness here, because it's a very demanding fan base. We're not satisfied just by making the playoffs every year and being there or thereabouts. You want to get something shiny at the end of the season. So I think you'll take a trophy. I obviously won MLS Cup first. It's the one in this country you have to go for. But it'd be great to see this team put together a good Supporter Shield run and a deep Champions League run as well. And of course the Open Cup. So you want to go for everything. But
well, we're on okay. That's 4. How many can we get to 5?
But in all seriousness, one trophy. You want to go into it and be a club that's winning a trophy a year, and I think that will keep the Sounders where they should be, near the top.
All right, Steve, we appreciate you, man. Zachwani11 on Twitter. Follow what he's doing. You see him on those broadcasts as well. Can I ask you, what room from your house did you come from today? We always enjoy seeing the interior decor that.
I'm just in the boring, plain living room today.
Just the living room today. We'll have to jazz it up a different one. All right, Steve, appreciate you, man.
All right, thank you, man. Good speaking to you.
Okay, number 2, Nashville SC, Drake Hills. I've already hit Drake with my anti-candy corn messaging in the text thread, so we don't have to do that here, Doyle. No worries about that.
We're like 8 months away from Halloween, guys. Come on now.
Keep your head on a swivel, candy corn. Snipe. I'm coming after you.
I'm going to have to jump in here, man, because to Matt's point, we're sitting here at the beginning of March and we're talking about candy corn. I think, personally, Andrew's just a little bit insecure about his chef skills. I mean, if you want it, I get you a pot roast. I give you some ribs.
You think I can hit you with that?
What do you want? What do you want?
Are you putting candy corn in your chef skills?
I can put you in a master class.
Okay.
It's easy for me.
I'll start boiling corn syrup tomorrow and put some food coloring in it. You'll have some candy corn on your doorstep. All right, Nashville, big win, man. Big win to start in the West at Seattle, to get a 1-0 win, to get a shutout. I know that maybe chance creation isn't exactly what they wanted, but they were the better team in this game. That's got to feel really good for Gary Smith in this club.
Yeah, I would actually say that they were pretty confident, Nashville, in their chance creation. I mean, look, 0.8 expected goals. Seattle, I think, had 0.6 expected goals. Nashville came into it realizing that wasn't going to be their game. They knew that the chances weren't going to be, the cup wasn't going to run over. And I mean, it took, I want to say, they had those kind of half chances at the beginning, but it really wasn't until Hani kind of broke out in those back-to-back chances that there was in the 23rd and 24th minute. He had Fry basically diving on the ground to punch out that one that was destined for the bottom left corner. Hani was by far the best player. He clearly stood out in terms of creating and being at the end of those chances. But I talked to Dax after, and Dax McCarty was he made it pretty clear, they were not going to go up to Seattle and just allow 80% possession, let, obviously, as you mentioned, Rui Diaz didn't play, and Ladiero came on in the second half, so that was a little bit different than perhaps what Gary was prepared or hoping for or thinking Seattle was going to do. But, he knew that Seattle was going to come at them, and, quite frankly, they weren't going to allow that to happen. So I was actually quite surprised of how aggressive Nashville came with the press and doubling down once Seattle got the ball. They were all over them. I think, with Davis and McCarty kind of allowing Godoy to be on the left as opposed to being that destroyer in the middle, with Dax clogging up that middle. That was a key to that. But yeah, like you said, good for Nashville, especially for the start of 8 games on the road straight before they open the stadium. This is in the best position that they could ask for.
Bit of a wrinkle too in coming out in that 4-4-2 diamond with, as you said, Godoy was on the left, Dax was in the middle. Sean Davis making his debut on the right side of that diamond, and then Leal underneath CJ Sapong and Hani Mukhtar. It felt different because so much of last year was spent for this team in that 3-5-2 or 3-4-2-1. But then you think back to 2 years ago, Gary Smith played a lot out of a 4-4-2. Is there any indication that this is a permanent switch? That this is something that Gary Smith wants to see out of his team every week? Or was there kind of like a one-off using the formation to influence the tactics to go up to Seattle and get a result?
Nah, man, I think it was the latter, especially how comfortable Hani is. I mean, like a free-flowing, front three with he and Randall are basically bobbing and weaving. Obviously, CJ being the central piece. Now, yeah, I mean, a lot of times Randall last year especially was the guy to kind of tuck in, and it was Hani and CJ up front. And it was, in a way, kind of like it was like almost like a 3-3, and then you had or a 3-4, and then you had like a 1, and then with Randall tucking under, and then Hani and CJ up top. I actually think that they're probably going to go back to the back three. Is actually quite surprised, even though they did go with the back four against Seattle, that Eric Miller was the guy who started on the far right of that back three. It wasn't Alex Muil, who we eventually saw in the end, but. I think this point was made by Steve earlier, just with the fact that Jordan Morrison, a lot of the times that Jordan did get the ball, it was his back was the goal, and he was catching it a bit higher up the field. He never really got the opportunity to take Eric one-on-one. So I definitely think that Gary got his tactics right. And going forward, I think that we'll see a little. Probably, I would like to see a little bit more of Muil and probably that 3-5-2, 3-4-3 shape.
Man, we haven't said Ake Loba's name once here. I know that extra time. I know that we just keep pounding on it because the amount of money they spent and the player that he's sort of expected to be. Is this an ominous start for his level of involvement, or was this just tactical?
No, it's just tactical. I mean, this is one thing Gary's starting to prove pretty clearly. If you're just going to do your job and you're going to work for 90 minutes, you're going to stay on the field. CJ's. I mean, I would like to see Ake in the field too. Like, I don't really understand what exactly he can offer this national team because we haven't gotten the sample size. We've seen him with at most 45 minutes on the road against New England last year, which was an absolute snooze fest offensively for them. And aside from that, Ake hasn't really given Nashville significant playing time. He got his goal against Cincinnati at the end of last year, but we don't know where he fits. Is he a second striker up there with CJ? Is he one that can maybe start out wide opposite Leal, or maybe sub in for Leal and be one to kind of cut in and start his work coming in centrally? We don't know where he fits, especially in this. Sometimes it is going to be the 3-4-3. Gary could very well go back to the 4-4-2, but it's not going to be something that is pretty permanent. I think there's going to be a lot of rotation involved, and it doesn't help that CJ is he's guy's going to work for 90 minutes. He puts a lot of pressure on the back four, back three, and it's not like Hani and Randall, especially Hani, are lacking in the work rate department either. So what Gary wants is the work rate and to be able to do the job both ways. And I think the guys who are on the field right now are proving that they are the best at that. And Ake's probably got some catch up to do.
Oh man, that's one to watch there. If he's not getting into the lineup, then you have some questions to ask here. The big price tag, the expectations.
Same thing with Piero. Lolly Piero. He's back on loan in Uruguay, but I think that was pretty much in a nutshell the same situation.
All right, Gary wants what Gary gets. Otherwise, you don't play on the field. That's the way it goes. Nashville going to Minnesota this weekend, Saturday, 6 p.m. Eastern. MLS Live on ESPN Plus. Drake Hills, live life, Drake. I just like saying that, Drake. Good to talk to you, man.
Peace.
All right, let's finish this off at number one. NYCFC lose on the road. I mean, they're CCL home-ish, but on the road to the Galaxy, Doyle. But they're still number one. Do you think they deserve to hold on to number one?
Yeah, I think this is still the best team in the league, and I know that people are going to take the power rankings too seriously, and it's not the standings. That's the way the power rankings have always worked. It's not just what the most recent result is. It's a sort of a compendium of what the Politburo thinks of these teams overall. And I still think that this is the best roster in the league. That might change this summer when Tati gets sold, if Tati gets sold. And it'll take more than one kind of dead-legged loss early in the season on the road after a week spent away, or 2 weeks really spent away, for me to change my mind about it.
What's interesting to you about NYCFC right now, or different from what we've talked about for what it seems like a good 6 months or so with this team?
Yeah, I mean, there hasn't been that much different. The real open question is whether Talis Magno or maybe Thiago Andrade or maybe Santi Rodriguez can start finishing the chances that are falling to them at a better rate. And we saw that earlier in this game, right? Maybe the best chance of the day came within 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Magno was unmarked inside the 6 for a header that he just headed clear over the bar. And it's you want to be encouraged because movement like that, to get open for looks like that, that's something that Tati Castellanos was doing 2 or 3 years ago. Heading the ball over was also something Tati Castellanos was doing 2 or 3 years ago. So it's like, okay.
I mean, no, he was doing that last year, to be fair.
That's fair. Yeah, he went 11 or 12 games.
Yeah.
Scoring. So
a lot of goals, but a lot of missed chances too. And that's what the beauty of Tati, right? Is that he'll be there. You'll just have to see what you get every single time.
Right. And in the long run, it's wise to kind of bet on the guys who show the IQ to move around like that, to get chances like that, that their finishing will come along. I think in the short run, there are obviously going to be moments of frustration still. And we've already got one of those with that miss. It was like game-defining miss in a lot of ways that I've seen NYCFC fans kind of lament. But my instinct with all of this is the talent is clearly there. The system still works. There are so many reasons to be super high on this team in spite of this loss this weekend. And it needs to be said, it was a really good performance from the Galaxy. Defensively, especially, other than Nick DePuy falling asleep maybe once, and Koulibaly, I think, falling asleep on that early chance. It was a really good defensive performance from the Galaxy, so credit is due there as well.
All right, New York City FC is the first number one in the regular season rankings. They hold their spot from preseason as well. We took you to the top 10, as we do every single Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern now here on the Power Rankings Show, Weeby and Doyle. Running you through the league, big thanks to all our guests on today's show: Drake Hills, Steve Zakuani, J. Sam Jones, Alicia Rodriguez, Marissa Pilla, Tom Boger, Jordan Angeli, Josh Guessman. It's been a great first show. Really enjoyed it. By the way, we do have some news here. Atlanta United just announced that Luis Araujo will miss approximately 4 weeks with that hamstring injury. So an update for you after we discussed that one earlier with J. Sam Jones. All right, that's it for us. We will catch you next week. Stay tuned to the MLS Twitter Spaces Network every day, 11 a.m. Eastern, MLS Today. We have MLS After Dark on Saturday and Sunday. Saturdays is Susanna and Kaylin and Doyle, I believe. Then Charlie and I hook you up on Sunday. And then extra time, if you're not subscribed, if you don't watch on YouTube, please do so.